Today, the State Department said it asked Twitter, the microblogging service, to delay taking the service offline for its scheduled maintenance. Because without Twitter, people in Iran would lose one of the important ways they have to communicate with each other and the outside world about what's going on in their country right now. A State Department official told reporters, quote, "Twitter announced they were going to shut down their system for maintenance, and we asked them not to." And thus, the State Department confirms what anyone who's been following the story has seen, which is that Iranian government media restrictions mean this revolution might not be televised, but it is definitely being tweeted and blogged and YouTubed and flickered. These sources, these means of posting citizen journalism online, are collectively the most comprehensive, up-to-the-minute way to follow this huge news story. The single most useful English-language compilation of all of these sources, and therefore, in my opinion, the single most essential website for news on what's happening in Iran, has thus far been maintained around the clock by a reporter here in New York. His name is Nico Pitney, and we'll talk with him in just a moment. Mr. Pitney has been live blogging events in Iran for HuffingtonPost.com since the protests began over the weekend. In case you haven't seen his live blog, here's a snapshot of his work today. At 12:22 a.m., which is about 9 a.m. in Tehran, Mr. Pitney posted video of garbage men joining in the protests in the streets of Tehran. At 12:55 a.m., he posted comments from a reader in Iran who said that Iran's state-run media were describing the rallies in the streets as seditious. At 1:58 a.m., he posted accounts of increased violence, including information from the website of Iran's former vice president, who says that he has been arrested. Meanwhile, Mr. Pitney posts that someone who appears to be an Iranian on Twitter is reporting a, quote, big explosion at a university in northern Iran. And Mr. Pitney posts the account of a British reporter who writes, quote, "A student began shouting at me in English through those grim black gates. There was a massacre." At 3:01 a.m. East Coast time, now 11:31 in the morning in Tehran, Mr. Pitney shares video from a reader at the protest in Azadi Square in Tehran, including shots of a man climbing the Freedom Tower there. More than 12 hours later, at 3:53 p.m., which is now well after midnight in Iran, he posts video of people protesting what they say is biased reporting at Iranian state television. And at 4:06, Mr. Pitney posts striking images of the aftermath of an attack on the home of a reformist member of Iran's parliament. Now, as traditional journalists are confined to their offices and prevented from filming on the streets and are blocked from the protests, what we're able to get to supplement their reporting is raw material, essentially, raw material from the participants in this uprising. We are 6,000 miles from Tehran, where I sit right now, but we have never been closer. Joining us now is Nico Pitney, national editor at HuffingtonPost.com. Nico, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, and that was very nice of you. And yes, I didn't have this beard when we started all this. It's been a long few days, but it's been, very exhilarating.
Are you exhausted? Have you been staying up all night? I mean, I can tell from your posts, it seems like you have.
It's basically been I've gone to bed around 3 or 4 and woken up around 6. It's been very intense. I hope to get a good night's sleep tonight.
Yeah.
But honestly, hearing from people either in Iran or Iranian Americans here who have family there, it's incredibly, it's very gratifying, and they are so passionate about it, and it makes it such a great experience.
How are you able to find so many different strands of this story? Are you essentially just scouring the far corners of the web? Are people feeding you stuff? Are you putting out requests for information that people are answering?
All three of those, okay. But it's really the two biggest kind of hills to get over were, one, finding the Iranians on Twitter who were reputable, who were posting regularly and descriptively, where you could get some good information, and then building kind of a stable of people who were willing to volunteer their time and be obsessive about it also. The number of people in the United States who speak Farsi who have volunteered their time to go through websites, read documents for me and with me, and they want to get this information out also. It's incredible.
We're hearing some reports of imposters, saboteurs, provocateurs, essentially posing as members of the opposition, posing as activists, even posing as Mousavi himself. How do you know if somebody's really there? How do you decide if somebody's credible?
I think there's a lot less of that, really. I mean, that's not, to me, the biggest trouble. I mean, I think it's more because the people who don't want this to be an issue, they don't have an incentive to be claiming, there's a big massacre, there's a lot of violence. But I have been, very stringent in terms of, avoiding putting up material that I can't confirm. And if there is something where I feel like it's got a strong chance of being true, I'm always very clear about saying I haven't confirmed it 100%.
And when you can confirm, you say how you were able to confirm.
Yes, exactly.
This jives with this and it doesn't.
Exactly.
I mean, you sort of have to be on the alert, even if we're not talking about deliberate imposters and provocateurs. And this isn't just true for Iran. It's true for, I think, all of citizen journalism. It seems like you have to be on the alert, even for well-meaning people, that when people are participants in the movement that they are documenting, and when sources of information for them are quite limited, there has to be a risk that they're essentially going to amplify local misinformation, local rumors, even local propaganda.
That's true. Absolutely true. And that's, I've tried to keep that in mind throughout. And there's no way to guard against it, but certainly, making sure you've got multiple sources and being patient, waiting for, there may be big news there sitting in front of you, but waiting until, the facts are there to back it up. There's a lot of information out there that can be very harmful to people. I mean, if they think that there's violence going on at their university and they're reading it on the site because we're trying to inform people and it's not true, that can have, pretty damaging effects on people. So we've tried to be cautious.
I will say that as somebody who's really benefited from your reporting and your work on this, a lot of what I have learned, it's been things that I've followed through, you bringing them to my attention. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I would also say that I was you're writing about your own emotion and your conflicted feelings about whether or not to post particularly graphic video that shows violence, in some cases maybe even people dying on the screen. It's affecting, and I think it's important to put that out there. So thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Nico Pitney has been doing his live blog at HuffingtonPost.com. Tonight he will be sleeping, so don't bug him.